was coming through the airport in Boston a few months back, and I'd been on a book tour for about 3 days, and so I'd been selling books. I think I'd sold about 100 books, and they're 15 bucks a pop, and it was all cash. So I had about $1,500 in my briefcase in an envelope, and I'm coming through security, and it just so happens that was one of the nights they decided, can we look in your bag, you know, and they did, and the young screener, Latina screener who looked in the bag, found the envelope with the money, and her eyebrows sort of went up, and she thought, that's interesting. And so she asked me where I was going. I told her I was going to Chicago. She asked her supervisor, who was a white man, to come over and look at it. And of course, I sort of knew, as they had me standing there to the side, you know, it is rare to come through an airport with $1,500 in cash. They called the white guy over, and she said, what do you think? And I heard him say, just give him back his property. It's nothing. Now, the reality is the odds of a black man, the odds of any person of color, but particularly an African-American man, coming through the airport. And by the way, I was wearing a hoodie, a black hoodie, blue jeans, and tennis shoes, and I had $1,500 in cash. I doubt very seriously that a black man dressed as I was dressed, my age, with $1,500 in cash, would have been given their property back as quickly. They might have ultimately gotten it back if there was no wrongdoing, but it was almost as if, you know, simply being white, oh, it's absolutely nothing. In fact, he instructed the young Latina to apologize for having inconvenienced me, which she then did. And then I, of course, told her there's nothing to apologize for. You're just doing your job. And the reality is, I mean, the data on this is very clear that actually it's white folks who are far more likely to be bringing drugs through security, for example, or through a customs checkpoint than people of color. One study found that white women were about 9 times more likely to have drugs on them coming through those checkpoints, even though black women were twice as likely to get searched. So she's doing her job. In fact, she's doing it well. She's doing it based on what the research says she actually ought to do. The white man was basically giving me a pass. And that's the kind of stuff which, you know, if I wasn't really looking for evidence, so to speak, if I didn't view every, you know, environment in which I find myself as sort of a racial CSI, right, where I'm looking for the evidence to see if it's there, I probably wouldn't have noticed it. And I guess some people could say, well, if you're looking for evidence, you'll always find it. But that's not true. You know, sometimes I'll go out and I'll be hyper alert and it'll be a good day and I won't see any racism or I won't see any sort of thing that I can easily attribute to race. That happens too. But if you are hyper alert, if you're vigilant, if you pay attention, if when you go shopping, you're looking to see if there are people being given different service, people being followed around the store, etc. A lot of times, and more often than not, you will see these things happening. It's not a figment of your imagination, but unless you sort of, you know, condition yourself to do it, it's very easy to miss and just go about your business.